with me.
Welcome back to another episode of Rocks with Me. I know it's been a while, but I came back with a special guest who I've known, I think, for a while now, like maybe not a whole year yet, but about.
I would say we're probably there. Yeah.
Yeah. Please help me welcome Nicole Torres, who is the founder of Ouroboros Healing. I said it right?
Ouroboros. Yeah.
Because I know I'm always struggling. She serves as a trauma-informed transformational self-worth coach, helping high achievers break generational cycles of work, trauma, self-abandonment, and burnout. So I'm super excited to get all my listeners to tune in and like hear what this is all about, because it's really good work. So thank you for joining me, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here on your solo podcast. I'm so happy that you're doing this and keeping that podcast spirit alive. So thank you.
I'm trying.
Yeah. We're all trying, girl. We're all trying.
Yeah. So you being a first gen Latina and being proud of it, how important is your work to those of people of color?
Yeah, I mean, this is my passion. Like, I'm very passionate about helping Latinas and women of color, specifically first gen women, because I am a first gen daughter. And I think the world that we experience is different. It's a little bit different for us. And we've got a whole other world of responsibilities and, self-esteem issues, feeling like, belonging and all of that. It's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. And I think that's kind of how I ended up in this field and in this work. Is I kind of always felt a little bit like an outsider, and that affected my self-worth a lot. So through my own healing journey, I've learned how to identify the things that are sort of like a collective trauma, a collective issue, and that it's not just me, and I think for a lot of other women that I worked with, specifically like first gen Latinas, that's the thing. That's the fear. It's like, something's wrong with me. What am I doing wrong? And it's not. It's like, oh, we're kind of going through this together, and specifically my work centers around work. So work trauma, how we show up at work, imposter syndrome, or now referred to as imposter phenomenon, how we relate our self-worth to our work, which brings up other things like perfectionism, people pleasing, imposter phenomenon, like I mentioned earlier. And all of that is really rooted in self-worth. And the way that I've come to see this as a first gen thing is a lot of that is rooted in our belief systems that we've learned and inherited from our parents, who, if we're first gen, they're the immigrants, right? They've come to the country, and the way that they experience work and survival and belonging is completely different. And we see that, we emulate that, we grow up with that. So we're just learning, what is normal to us. And, that feeling, or that, I don't know if it was just me, but it's like, just be grateful for the job you have.
Right.
Do your work, don't make waves, put your head down, quédate calladita and do your job. Right. And so what happens is we do that. Like, we're good little workers, and we don't ask for more. We don't expect more. So it's a whole complicated, inner dialogue that's going on with how we feel about ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. That inner dialogue is so important. And so that's kind of how my work has evolved. It started out with relational trauma and generational healing. And it's still, that is the root. Like, that is what we eventually dive deep into. But at the surface, it's manifesting as burnout, as people pleasing, perfectionism, not having boundaries, and just spreading ourselves as thin as a tortilla. It's just, that's what I'm doing out here in the world.
And it's great work because you're right. We're so accustomed to just staying quiet, just going with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes once we realize our worth, we get intimidated on asking like for a raise to match the worth we know we're worth.
Yeah, that's totally real. And my background is in tech and animation and production management. So my industry is very white male dominated. And, it's when you are in those spaces, and especially with the women I work with who are in tech, like in programming or UX designers, like actual technology. They're almost always like, they tell me that they're the only Latina there. And that's how I was in my job. There were other women of color, but not many. It feels intimidating to be in those spaces, walking into that with whatever baggage we have, right? On top of that, we get this sort of confirmation bias where, if we have an issue with our self-worth or speaking up and sharing our voice and contributing, if we are in a situation where our voice, if we're not praised, or if we're overlooked, or if what we do share isn't validated, or it's like somebody else says the same thing and they get the praise and you're like, wait, I just said that. So that confirms what we're already feeling, and that's the hardest part, is knowing that even though those things are happening, it's not a reflection of us. It's them. It's where they're coming from. It's their own biases that they have against women of color, whatever the bias is. And, it sucks because it's like, you do have to work harder to prove yourself, to be taken seriously. And that's their bias, right? Because they're like, I don't know if she knows what she's talking about. Right. And then you're like, oh, look. And then you're like, I have receipts. So you have to work twice as hard. But for my clients, it's like, how do they feel about that, about themselves when that happens, right? And I coach them through this process of like helping them understand that it's a confirmation bias. It's a literal thing that happens. It's not a reflection of them, their value, their education, their skill, their talent. It's separate.
So this podcast, especially for the newer listeners that are just coming in, when I have guests on, I always want to give them the platform to kind of like share their story of resilience, because I feel like all of us are a bit of a lotus flower where we're like blooming and blossoming through the thickest of muds sometimes and come out like even more beautiful and glowing. And you had your own journey with dealing with self-worth and like and healing your own abandonment wound. So go ahead and tell us about that, like how that came across your life and then how you prospered to do what you do.
So I do have to preface this because if there's any astrology folks out there, like my Chiron is in Gemini. So my wounded healer is about the self and having this duality, right? And feeling like, and I'm a Leo, so I'm like confident, but am I really? It's like I project, but am I really? And that kind of started because I was like single mom. My parents separated when I was very young, never knew my parents together because I was not even one when they separated. But so growing up with just my mom, and I would see my dad on the weekends type of thing, there was a period of time where he was building his own business that he's, did the American dream and he worked and blah, blah, blah. So he really dedicated a lot of time to that. And at that time, I think I was like 6-ish, like pretty young. And he would sometimes not come. He would just not come and pick me up, and I'd be waiting. And there was this like a lot of instability with that relationship. And when you're a child, part of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is needing to have that consistency and stability. So for me, I internalized that as a child. That was my first big wound. And it was with my dad. And it's like that affected how I was in relationships. And, it just changed a lot for me and how I saw myself. Like, does he not love me enough? And he's not get me. And then, there was alcoholism involved as well. So it was like, he doesn't love me enough to stop and all of that stuff. Right. So that is sort of what the wounding was. And because my Chiron is in this placement and my North Node is in Gemini, my rising is Gemini, like I've had to do a lot of work on me and the self. So not feeling, like I belonged, I'm just like getting so many flashbacks and floods of memories. So, yeah, it's like, being bullied in school. I feel like everybody was kind of bullied in school, or they were the bullies, or maybe both. But we always have that super hard lesson as a kid and trying to find your place and trying to fit in. And, if you didn't have the right shoes, like we would go to Payless and I didn't have Jordans, and I would get made fun of for that. So then it was like the economic situation, right? I think over time with relationships, specifically romantic, when those wouldn't work out, it would re-trigger that wound of I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable as myself, being me. And that's not true. But in reality, a lot of times, me included in that, we just have unresolved trauma. So we're acting out our trauma in our relationships. It's unhealed. And that's why my relationships weren't working. Not that I was all to blame, but I definitely contributed. And when two people come together unhealed, it's a shit show, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to work. So I had to go from being the victim and feeling like the victim, like life was unfair. Why did I have this family? Why am I the way that I am? Like, to being responsible and being like, okay, like I'm seeing a pattern here, right? And taking responsibility and being like, okay, what do I have to do to change? Like, what is the problem, first of all? It's like the awareness process is really important. I went through my own tower moment of like, everything kind of fell apart and I had to rebuild. And that's when I was like, okay, I gotta do some soul searching. And I started looking into shadow work and what that is. And for those who don't know, like shadow work is basically just understanding the part of yourself that you're ashamed about, the things that you don't like about yourself that you want to keep hidden in the shadows. So you have to like open the door, put the flashlight on it and take a look and be like, oh, okay, that's what that is. And then you integrate, you learn how, like where it comes from, why you are the way you are, how to heal it, what you can do to be better. And sometimes like some things just don't heal. And for me, I think my journey with self-worth is always going to be evolving. And my Chiron is very active in that way. And that is the medicine that I've taken and that I've learned. I've learned about myself. I've learned about all these healing modalities. I left tech. I left my corporate job in 2021 is when I went full time into this work. And I had already been doing not coaching, but energy work, healing, doing emotion code and healing myself at the same time. And then that's how it all sort of started to unfold into what I'm doing now. It was a journey, just like everything else, the business is its own journey. The resiliency part is like kind of like the confirmation bias in all aspects of my life. When things didn't go well, or if I made a mistake, like I'm a recovering perfectionist. So my self-worth was deeply rooted in my work and in my bank account and how others perceived me. So the resiliency part is like continuously going back to taking responsibility and trying to understand why I feel the way I feel, why I do the things that I do, and continuing to love myself and show up for myself and be gentle, compassionate, and really like, yeah, just be like, it's cool, girl. You fucked up today, but tomorrow's a new day. You can do it. And just continuing to learn from my mistakes, you know. I think now I'm 40 and having so much life under my belt helps me to help other women who are younger than me. Like a lot of my clients are 26, 7, 8, 9, and 30. Like that's usually the range when I think most people are figuring out something's not working. We grew up a certain way and we want this other life and we want to experience joy, peace. We don't want to be stressed out all the time and like in survival mode. And then our life starts to represent that survival, you know? And I think that's when most women are like, something's got to change. And then they realize like, I got to change. It's not the boyfriend, it's not mom and dad and work, the job. Like you can keep changing your environment, but if you are the problem, if you are the common denominator of things not feeling right, then that's when we got to like take a hard look and be honest, you know, and do the shadow work.
And kudos to you because you learn to take that accountability of like, okay, it's not all on the them aspect. It's also part of me, which is
Yeah.
something a lot of people struggle with because who wants to admit they're wrong?
Yeah, no one. I mean, that's the whole thing is we're out here surviving and trying to do what's right for ourselves. But when we were raised a certain way or with certain belief systems about how the world is or how we are, we're going to continue that belief until something outside of us challenges that. And, you know, for me, there was, yes, that part of the conversation of, okay, what is it about me and how can I take responsibility? But I don't want to like knock the universe because universe was like, yo, we're about to shake some shit up real quick. And I was like, I had to. I was like, this is crazy. Like it was just everything got wiped. It was like my boyfriend dumped me right after my uncle got diagnosed with cancer. Like 3 days later, I got T-boned. I lost my car. It was so rough. And I was running my first business, which was a subscription box, and I was completely burnt out, like barely holding on, trying to make that situation work. And I just didn't want to fail. That's the thing. And
Yeah.
most of the folks that I work with, if they are perfectionists, that's the worst thing that can happen. You fail. And for my business to close because I was so exhausted and I wasn't getting the money. It wasn't worth it anymore. But I didn't want to fail and I didn't want other people to know that I was struggling so bad. So when everything sort of got wiped out and I moved, that was another thing. So I was like all messed up from my car accident, like trying to move and pack, and it was just, oh, it was so rough. And decided to move in with my grandma to support her and my uncle during his transition. And then it was like back to basics, back to family,
Mm-hmm.
you know, back to just being me, Nicole, at grandma's house. And that was like super humbling. And I got to see, you know, my uncle transition. And it was just such a crazy time to be experiencing like my life bullshit and then like someone actually passing, you know, and losing their life and seeing my grandma like grieve. It was just so intense, but it was the perspective shift that I needed. And that helped me move the business along. And I was like, okay, this is dumb. Like, why am I still doing this? Why am I beating myself, you know, over the head with this? And sort of gave me the permission to say, okay, it's time to close this. I need to focus on my family. So yeah, the universe definitely had a hand. I feel like, you know, I mean, you know, tarot, it's like the tower moment, you know, and the people are like, well, They're like flying out of the tower. There's like flames. And I feel like the universe is like shaking it up, you know? So that's,
Yeah.
I think everyone has one of those awakening moments. They have
Hmm.
to. Otherwise, you just keep doing your thing.
Which becomes like what the definition of insanity is. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different
Mhm.
result.
Absolutely. And I started working with my healer in 2018. And that is exactly what I said to her or to myself before I said yes. I was like, I can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. Like something has to change. And I asked for help, which was also another thing that was very hard to do, to admit that I
Right.
couldn't do it myself. But I was so ready. I was just sick of my own shit. And I think most people, they're just like, I'm just tired of living like this, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That, yeah. And then you go into that self-awareness, like, and accountability that we talked
Yeah.
about. So you are certified in integrative somatic trauma therapy.
Yeah. Integrative somatic trauma.
Integrative.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a mouthful.
So, and then you also do the emotion code, which
Hmm.
we've had a session together
Yeah.
with. And then you do Reiki
Hmm.
and Akashic Records. So, break down what each of that is and how it just in a whole comes together in your business.
So, integrative somatic trauma therapy is essentially it takes pieces of different therapeutic approaches. So, there's like internal family systems, there's parts work, basically, that's, you know, the inner child and the inner critic and breaking things up. So, that's like one therapeutic model. So, across different models, there's a way to integrate that work with people who have trauma and helping them use their bodies to release trauma or to reconnect with their bodies. So, if someone has, you know, sexual trauma, when I say move into your body, for them, it might not feel safe. It's going to be
Right.
they might not even be able to connect with their body. Like they're completely disassociating from their body, out of body experience. We talk about that sometimes, like, you know, either you're dreaming or it's like a near death experience. But in a lot of times people are walking, but not physically, and like their soul is not in their body anymore. They have disconnected their brain from their body in a way that's, you know, it's a protective mechanism. So if your body doesn't feel safe, it's a process of like slowly and gently reconnecting with the body and learning how to feel and connect to your intuition through the body. You know, trauma release is different for everyone. It could be literally like physically shaking your hands or like moving your arms and your body, or it's crying, it's purging, it's rage sometimes. I've actually been wanting to do like a retreat, like a mini retreat for rage, for anger and women in anger, because we don't get taught how to process our anger, you
Or
know.
express it in a healthy way.
Yeah. Yeah. Or express it in a healthy way. Yes. So that's something I've been kind of ideating. Okay. So that's the first part. The emotion code is an energy healing modality that identifies trapped emotions, or emotions are energy in motion. It's how we express. So sometimes we're not able to express fully the range of our emotions, or even, you know, understand what our emotions are. We're not able to name them. Or if when we're children, something happens to us that we can't verbalize, and it's like we either cry or we're in such shock that we just freeze up and the emotion is like trapped inside of us. So the emotion code is a process of identifying that emotion, where it is in the body, and then releasing that for the client. And that is a super powerful, I don't know, modality. Like that's what sort of changed the game for me when I was like, oh shit, this is real. Like energy is real. Like you always think you're like, oh yeah, you're arms and everything is apart.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like, okay, yeah, whatever. But that moment when I did my first emotion code session, I had chronic neck pain. Like I would wake up and I'd be like, just so stiff, you know? And it was always the pillow. Like I was sleeping wrong. I like went through like 30, no, I'm just kidding. Like I bought a shit ton of pillows, let's just say. And it never went away. Like I always felt like, God, my neck and da da da. So I don't even remember how I met this guy, but he did an emotion code session virtually with me. It was like 20 minutes and he found trapped emotions in my neck and released them. And then I did the thing where you like, okay, now shake it, you know, move your body, walk around. I came back and I was like, that's weird. Like I have no pain at all. It's like 0 to 10. What's your pain level? I think it was like an 8. And finally was like, wow, this is a trip. And the next day I was like, okay, well, we'll see. Like if I wake up with the pain, no pain. Again, I woke up completely fine. My neck didn't hurt for the first time in like probably a couple of years. And I was like, wow, this is the real deal. And from there, I went to Utah. I did the session, I did the training. I fully committed to it and got my certification. And a lot of people, you know, it changes lives when you're in pain for so long. You know, pain is horrible. You're just dealing with it. And a lot of my clients at the time were like just used to the pain. They didn't really,
They just learn to live with it.
Yeah, they learned to live with it. And when they had that relief, it was like, you know, tears or just like, wow, they're in disbelief and shock. So that's part of the work that I do, because when we have trauma, when we have unresolved issues or emotional baggage, it's in our body. It's in our physical bodies. So, you know, neck pains, back pains, lower back, like chronic pain is usually connected to emotional stress, trapped emotions, energy. If we can live, you know, a little bit more pain-free, our lives will, our beingness would be happier, right? We enjoy life better when we're not in pain. So yeah, that's the emotion code. And Reiki was basically like the gateway drug of energy healing. the first thing that I learned how to do. And I could feel energy in my hands, and it's just so fun. I just love it. And I would love to do more sessions. So if y'all are out there and interested, I'd love to work with you. It's a lot of fun. And Reiki is basically you're tapping into consciousness, energy healing consciousness, and it's pure love, positive energy, light. And it comes in through your crown chakra and then out the palm of your hands. And then you basically lay hands on people. And the thing about Reiki that for me was like, okay, it's fine. It was just, it goes where it's needed, but that's it. So you may not even know what the issue is. And for me, that's why I really connected with emotion code, because I find the exact emotion. I know where it is. I know where it came from. I retrace the year, like how old you were when this happened, and then the specific moment. And for me, that was super satisfying. Like I'm a need to know kind of gal. Like,
right.
I need the details. I need the receipts. So Reiki is something that I do occasionally, but not much. Like I don't really advertise it. I think it's just a part of me in my process. And then the Akashic Records, gosh, how do I even explain this shit? Like, just the most epic thing ever. So the Akashic Records is basically a frequency. I connect to the Akashic realm in like deep space of like Akasha, or Akashic means the primary source or prima materia. It's the beginning. It's like the magician in the tarot. It's like the spark of consciousness, of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I describe the feeling or the essence of it. But it's literally a record of everything, person, place, or thing, people, all the things, all future possibilities and probabilities. And it's just a record of time of everything. So each person has their own little record. So if I like to describe this as like a library, like the Akashic Records
Mm-hmm.
would be the library. And then each of us would have like a shelf in the library, and all of the books are different past lives. And like you are that soul of the shelf. And then each book is a past life. And then you open the book and that's your life. That's this lifetime. So, and the library is infinite. It doesn't have any walls. Go forever. It's wild to be able to connect to this. And this is something that I've been certified to work with,
Mm-hmm.
but this is something that I think, people have been connecting to this type of consciousness forever, as long as there's humans and this desire to connect to something greater than us. Deep meditation can get you there. So yeah, I can open your records and you can ask questions that you want to know about your soul contracts. That's a word that sometimes people might be familiar with. Like why is my dad my dad? Why is my mom my mom? Who are the family, like the soul groups, that we come to earth with to do life? And who have we been traveling with for lifetimes? There's those people that you
Mm-hmm.
meet, like, I know you. And you're like, no, never met. And then you're just like, bleep, like instant connection. There's a soul connection there. Um, so connecting to the Akashic Records is deeply healing and transformational because you get to tap into something that you might have always kind of known or been curious about, and then you get your answer, and it validates a lot of people's experiences. I'll give you an example. Like one of my clients, she was curious about a past life,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of rough. Like she was in an abusive relationship with this man, and he choked her to death. And I didn't know this, but she later told me that she's always had like a sensitivity with her neck. And even her voice is kind of like raspy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she had like another person work on her and was like, yeah, something's going on with your throat and you got to be really careful. Da, 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 da. And she was like floored. And that connected this in this lifetime why she has so many issues with her throat and her neck. And for her, it was like, oh, okay, it's nothing in this lifetime that I need to worry about. It's
Right.
past. So those types of questions can be really helpful for people to sort of like let go of certain things
Mm-hmm.
that they're struggling with now. It's pretty cool because from my perspective as a practitioner, I see the world differently now because we have all been different lives and different archetypes, if you will. So, like, we've all been the bad guy. We can't be like at a soul level, we are equal. At a soul level, we are good. It's the lifetime that we are specifically here to experience life on all levels, all spectrums. And that is the soul's purpose, is to experience humanity, life. And sometimes we're having a good life. Sometimes we're good. I was a doctor delivering babies at one point and super happy with my life. And then in another lifetime, I was like a prison guard in like the dark ages. And I was a bad motherfucker. And I was like whipping people and hurting people. And it's like, who are we? But just this one experience. It's like, no, we've been it all. When we think that we are that unique and that this is all there is, it's so limiting. And it makes those people see the world from this one perspective, this
Right.
one race, one culture, one religion, it's so limiting. But if you were to see the world as in, we've all had different experiences in different lives, like how different would that be if you knew that you were maybe that person's culture or race that you didn't like at one point,
That'd be a trip.
You can't, like, you hate on yourself now.
And so now you have Ouroboros Healing, and you have your website, and you even have a 5-month healing program that you do.
Reclaiming. So it's the roadmap to reclaiming peace. And that's for women and women of color who are dealing with low self-worth, who are dealing with burnout. The whole self-abandonment issue, it stems from the self-worth. So for me, self-worth is like the foundation of our life. If we have low self-worth, it's going to affect every area of our life, who we date, the friends we keep, the jobs that we go for or don't, right? The things we don't ask for. This program is 5 months. And each month we work on a specific like pathway point. And the first one is self-awareness. So this is where it all starts, right? Like we were talking about earlier, you have to have that self-awareness and be present with what is happening in your life, not just blaming everyone. It's like, where is my responsibility? Or how do I feel physically when I'm with a certain person? Or how do they make me feel emotionally if I'm not around? Like, am I anxious because they're off doing something? And I think, relationship stuff, like, are they cheating on me? Are they talking to other people? Like when they're not around, right? If you're still anxious during these periods of them being away from you, you have to be aware of that. And that's not normal. That's not okay. So moving into the next pathway point is self-acceptance. So this is when we get into kind of like looking into the parts of our lives that have shaped us, right? So the awareness leads to this process of being like, oh, okay, so I am this way because X, Y, Z. And then we go into the self-forgiveness process. And self-forgiveness or forgiveness of others is super important because it's the process of letting go. And if we're holding on to all the stuff from the past, traumas, unresolved traumas, that is going to weigh us down, and it's going to keep us, using these same glasses of this perspective of living from trauma. I call them trauma glasses. Like if you have experienced trauma, your perception of the world is going to change. But at some point, you have to take off the trauma lenses, take off that perspective, and start seeing the world from a different perspective, a healed place, right?
Right.
Otherwise, we are going to perceive and interact with the world from a traumatized or defensive or angry, whatever that result was, right? So the self-forgiveness and forgiveness of others is really, forgiving isn't for the person that you're forgiving. It's for yourself. It's permission to move on and let go. So that's like months 1 and 3 are deeply healing and deeply transformational. And then months 4 and 5 is when we move from no longer looking at the past, but looking forward. So month 4 is about the soul work. And that's when we do the Akashic Records reading and really connecting to what your joy is, what your truth is from the perspective of your inner niña. So this is very also transformative because some of my clients have never even worked with their inner niñas, their inner child. And she's always here. She's always with us. So there's an ownership that happens of a protection of that little version of us. And what can we do in our lives now that would heal her? For some, it's going to Disneyland because they never had money to do it when they were little and they felt like they missed out. For others, it's reclaiming an old hobby that used to bring them joy that they don't do anymore because they're adults, right? So reconnecting to that and then doing a guided meditation to connect with your future self. And that's super cool because we move into manifesting in month 5. So it's like connecting with joy. What's going to make you happy? How can you reframe your life so that you're not focusing on perfection, on others, on burning out, not having these boundaries, which we do cover in, I think, like week 13, but boundaries start to play a big role in this. And then it's like, what do we want to manifest? Who do we want to be? What do we want to become? It could be a thing like material, or it could be something to embody. Some of my clients want to embody ease. Ease was a big one. Trust, and loving your whole self, loving your shadow. And we do some ritual work, so candle magic at the end, and we do a ritual to call in that manifestation. And yeah, it's super fun. And I think that's usually like everyone's favorite is months 4 and 5, because the healing work it's shadow work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I believe, you do have to do a certain amount of shadow work in order to feel worthy of what you're trying to manifest or call into your life. And that's a big part of why people's lives or endeavors are not working, because the shadow work hasn't been done yet.
And during that 5-month program, do you ever get people that are like kind of stalemate at 1 month of trying to like they get stuck in like self-forgiveness or the forgiving month?
I've been fortunate that everyone that I've worked with has really trusted me and trusted the process. I think they do get to a certain point where like they keep repeating the pattern. So I'm a big pattern person, and that's one of my strengths is I see patterns when other people don't. And that's part of this work too, is breaking these cycles. So I'm very clear with them in the beginning that you're going to try to do this and you're going to fail at a certain point. You're going to see a trigger, or you're going to get triggered by something, and you're going to react because you have a neural pathway in your brain that's like flexed out and super strong, and you've been reacting and doing this thing your whole life. So even though we're learning about this, it's going to take time and repetition. That's why I work with my clients for 5 months, because the thing that we learn in week 1, which is managing the triggers, that's the foundation of this work. And we're doing it all 5 months. We don't just stop on week 2. We're like, okay, let's not do that anymore.
Yeah.
Week 1, it's a cumulative learning process. So I'm like, look, you're going to try to do it and it's not going to work. Just keep trying. Right. And then the next time they're like, ooh, I know it. I know what I got to do. And then they still don't do the change. They're not taking a different path. They're taking the same path, but they have the awareness now. So it's like, it's a gradual process. And then at some point, I had one of my clients last week say like, you know what, yesterday this thing happened and I normally would have gotten upset about it. And I normally would have said XYZ. And I was just like, And so that's the point of change right there. When they don't engage, or it's a different path and it no longer triggers them, it no longer activates because they've been working on it in a different way, creating a new neural pathway. And that's how the transformation happens. It's a gradual thing, but like we're changing brains out here. It's not going to be overnight,
Right.
So that's why I call myself a transformational self-worth coach, because it truly is a process of transforming how you see the world, how you see yourself, how your brain is working. The best feeling is when they share those moments with me. And I'm like, oh, it's happening.
Celebrating them wins that you see.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely got to celebrate those wins.
So on your website, ouroboroshealing.com, anybody could go on the website and look up what you're about in more detail, sign up or get more info on the 5-month roadmap to reclaiming peace that you offer. And then when you also first visit her website, you'll get a chance to subscribe, to put in your email and
Mhm.
you automatically get the 5 secrets to managing anxiety from you.
Yeah. Hmm.
And you put there so you can reclaim your peace of mind today. Is
Yes.
that like a little like, here's a little taste of what could possibly come if you work with me type of thing?
Yeah. It's a triggers download that like you can learn how to talk yourself out of a trigger. There's like some sensory tips in there. And those are just, tips to help you out in a daily basis. But the thing is, if you don't have someone on the other end supporting you, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
fall back into your patterns. And usually, not having the understanding of why we do something, it's like it doesn't seem to click for most people. And that's usually when I see the change, is when they connect to the why and they're like, oh, because then we can find the need that's not being met. That's the thing about triggers. There's a need that's not being met. And like, who's going to ask themselves that when they're in a trigger?
Right.
Nobody, you know? Why I'm here. That's what I do is I ask very important questions that get you thinking and reflecting and like sort of peeling back those layers of the onion to find like what is really going on here.
Getting to that root thing. It's like
Mhm.
pulling weeds. If you pull just the weed that you see, it's going to
Yeah.
come back with a
Yeah,
vengeance sometimes.
exactly. Yes, that's a really good analogy. Yeah, and I have another thing I'm working on right now. It's basically like a mini course on triggers. And it's essentially a condensed version of the first month of, or sorry, the first week of working in reclaiming. So that's something that I'm editing right now and putting together. And it'll be basically like the next step. So if you've downloaded the triggers worksheet, then this would be the next step to like really get a more in-depth practice that you can watch with me and or do with me. And then if that's like, yes, I want to learn more and I want to get better at the rest of my life, then booking a call is definitely going to be the best next step. I would say hop on a call with me and we can get to work on, what are the blocks? Like a pattern, right? I'm a pattern reader. So I could easily in like a 30-minute conversation pull out those little pieces of like where the tweaks need to happen,
Mm-hmm.
where it's their responsibility, or maybe it's a boundary. It's a boundary that someone else is crossing that they just have gotten used to people crossing certain boundaries, you know?
And we've had a call where you performed the emotion code. And I think during that call, it was like my knee pain that I was going through.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you had me walk around and stuff. Can we do like a snippet for them to like how
Yeah.
you go through it?
So the way that emotion code, the actual process of doing this, there's about 60 different emotions that pretty much encompass like the core feelings that we all have. So if we were in a session together, I'd be like, okay, so this is emotion code. And essentially, I'm going to energetically connect into your energy field with your permission. Do I have permission to connect into your energy?
Yes.
Okay. So, with permission, I would then be able to ask yes or no questions because at the core, we're working with your subconscious mind, not your conscious mind, your forward thinking, but like what's deeper. And your consciousness, like your subconscious can't answer verbally or whatever. So, we have to just say yes or no. And I will be doing muscle testing. And the way that I muscle test is through the little finger in the loop. And muscle testing is essentially kinesiology. It's a way to work with the body and we're kind of like a natural pendulum. We move towards things that are in alignment. We move towards things like a flower in the sun. We're like moving towards it. If there's something that repels us that is not in alignment, we're going to back away from it. This happens with people all the time. We're like, I don't know, you're too
Yeah.
close. You're making me uncomfortable. So the yes, no, when we are in alignment, our body and our energy field is strong. When we are not in alignment or when it's a no, our energy is just a little weak. So when I say yes, I'll just do it here. My hand is strong, my fingers are closed. When I say no, no, it'll break through the loop. So that's how I test. Some people, we do it with like the arm, like your arm is stronger when you say yes.
Mm.
No, it goes down. That's how I do it in person so that people can actually feel it and know that it's not just me, it's literally them. So I will, do you have any pain in your body right now?
My elbow. We'll do my elbow because it's not constant pain, but it does come every so often
Okay.
where I just like, okay.
Your left side?
Yes.
Okay, left side. And left side is our feminine side. So it may be that you're overworking the feminine side. Okay, so if you want, we can just start now. And I just drop in. So I say, show me yes, show me no. That's in my head just to give a little baseline. Am I connected to Roxy's energy? Am I Nicole? That's a no. Okay, so now I'm you energetically. And I'll say, is there a trapped emotion that is contributing to Roxy's pain in her left elbow? That's a yes. Is it in column A? It's a yes. Is it an odd number? No. Is it even? So is it row 2? Is it row 4? Is it row 6? So A6. So then I see like I go down into my row and I see this one, A6. And now I have a whole list of emotions that I will check through with muscle testing. So I'll say, is this trapped emotion humiliation? It's a no. Is this jealousy? It's a no. Is it longing? Okay, longing. So then I read you the definition and you just connect to either a memory or a time where you felt this really strongly. So longing is to have a strong desire or craving, a yearning or pining, aching for something, or to miss someone or something that you do not have.
I feel like there's different phases in my life where I've felt that longing.
Okay, great. So at this point, I would ask, or is there anything else we need to know about this longing before we can release it? So is that a yes? No, that's a no. If it were to say yes, I would connect to your age. And if you want, we can try to pinpoint that now. But technically, like your consciousness and subconscious are aligned. And they're saying, yeah, we can release this. Sometimes it's not, though. We have to ask more questions about it. And this is why I like it, because in some cases, like we don't need to relive it. We know
Right.
what it is. Like I could even ask you to think about something and I can muscle test my way through it because I'm connected to you energetically. So, do you want to look into when this happened?
Okay.
All right. So, did this longing happen before the age of 20? So, that's a no. So, we go up. Did this happen before the age of 30? That's a yes. Did this happen before the age of 25? That's a no. So, we go up. Does this happen at age 26? No, 27, 28. Okay. So, we got a yes on that. 28. So, at age 28, there was something that you were craving, desiring, had a longing for, or really missed. Do
I'm
you
trying to
remember?
see what year was that? I want to say that was when, because I left my abusive marriage in 2000, the end of 2014, 2015.
Mhm.
2017, I feel like that's when I was at the point where, okay, I'm ready for a partner. I'm ready for that like family. I want the family life type of thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a feeling of longing. It's like the yearning, right? The craving. So it's
Yes.
either missing someone or something, or to crave, have a strong desire for yearning or pining. Yeah. So then I would say, like, is this the correct trapped emotion, age 28? And that's a strong yes that I'm getting. So then we would move on with the releasing of that trapped emotion. So go ahead and close down the eyes and just take a deep breath. And then I'd say, with love and gratitude, we are releasing this trapped emotion of longing from Roxy now, releasing it now through all time and space, past, present, and future lifetimes. Did we release that trapped emotion of longing? And that's a yes. So that's one emotion gone, one trapped emotion.
I am
And
still in awe when you do that. Like from the last time we did it with the knee. And so you do have the 5 month, but do you have like individual sessions that people can sign up for if they want?
yeah, it's not on my website right now because when I do recruiting for the program, I just focus on that. So I'm going to open that up. If anybody wants to work with me, I have a mini session, which is 3 sessions, and then I have a 7 week package. When I work with people, they usually have something that they want to work towards.
Right.
And then when we start working together, we start uncovering all this other stuff that is contributing to that. So, like, I had a client who, had a writing block, and that's what she wanted to move through. And then we like cracked open all of this other stuff that was really contributing to this, like almost like a fear of being seen, and how other situations kind of started that. Once we cleared all of that out, it was just like boom, flowing. So it's not just, relationship or personal development. This is like about mindset. And so this emotion code is one part of it. I also have a part that I do with it that focuses on limiting beliefs. So we find the limiting belief and we narrow it down to the chakra that it's living in, because each of our chakras are responsible for us as creative beings, right? So if there's something that's either like in your root chakra or that's your place of belonging, you might not be able to connect with people. You might not be able to have these like meaningful relationships if there's something blocking your root chakra.
Right.
Or your heart chakra, right? So we find these limiting beliefs, release them, and then we find a new positive belief system, because I believe that when you release something, you got to put something back in that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And I give them a mantra. So that's what we do, is focus on chakra healing, balancing, and you get a mantra that you then start working with to like really solidify the new belief systems.
It's all so very interesting. And for those listening, I'll link her website and all her contact stuff in the show notes. Tag her on my Instagram, because this is something I would suggest everybody like try.
For sure. We're just, we're walking little energy bodies. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I don't know if anybody is an animation person out there, but there's this show called The Last Airbender. And I remember seeing one episode that so clearly explained our energy and how it works. And it was, this wise teacher with a fountain, demonstrating a fountain with different tiers. And he was like wiping the leaves off of the top of the fountain. And that was all the crap that we deal with on a daily basis. It's road rage. It's, a bill that we forgot to pay. It's all these little things that like create these negative emotions. And like a fountain, if there's leaves clogging the spout, it's not going to flow well. Right. So he was like clearing at each level all of the leaves off of this little fountain. And then each one would start to pour the water into the next one. And I was like, look at y'all doing this animation teaching at this level. That's how it is. So it doesn't matter what you're going through. You just need this in your life. Like I call it an emotional detox, because, we need to detox at all levels, physically, emotionally. It matters. And you'll walk away feeling light, peaceful. You got a spring in your step. So yeah, let's work together.
Well, I appreciate you, Nicole, and taking the time to come on my podcast.
so fun. It's always so good chatting with you and sharing this work with your community. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on.
And you're welcome back anytime. And to close off, I have a Rocks With Me playlist on Spotify where I add songs that guests suggest. So, what's that one song, your go to song that you'd want to suggest to add on the playlist?
Okay. I'm going to say Lamento Boliviano. Do you know that one? It's an old Spanish rock song.
Who sings it?
Los Enanitos Verdes.
Okay, yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about then.
Throwing a little like classic Spanish rock in the playlist mix. And I have so many different genres of music that I just love. So making a playlist is something that I think I might also do and put that on my LinkedIn page because I got a lot of
Yes.
burnout babes and they need some stuff to calm them down. But I think also a little like rage playlist would be really fun.
Yes, I suggest you do it, and I'll
Okay.
definitely listen to it.
Yeah, you're inspiring me. I love it. I love it.
All right. Well, to the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And as a reminder, you are remarkable, you are resilient, and I am proud of you. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.